What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Keeping Up with Cash. It's your host, Cash Money Morgan. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can probably see that I have mic stands now. So shout out to my dad. You're amazing, and I love you so much. Thanks for hooking me up. He was just like, hey, I'm going to get you some stands. And I was like, hey, I love you. Period. That was our whole text chain. It was awesome. But yeah, I knew I needed some stands, and I was getting stressed about it because finances, and we'll get into everything in the episode. But you guys, I really want to break down just high level, like what this episode's going to be. First of all, I just feel like I miss having a chat with you, like in a friend, intimate way. Like I really want this to be like a late night FaceTime call. Like I'm traveling home from Missouri to Wisconsin, and I'm in the middle of Illinois, and I just want to call and see how you've been. Oh my gosh, your kids have gotten so big. I don't know. So I just really wanted to be like chill vibes. Like I invited you over to coffee, and now we're just like hanging out. I don't even drink coffee. I'm a tea drinker. So that doesn't even that wouldn't even be my world, but whatever. So anyways, I feel like so much life has happened since the last solo pod, which was navigating difficult seasons. And we just have to get into it. And guys, I have no notes tonight. Like I jotted down a few things in my phone app. Usually for a podcast, I have like a high level outline, but I just am so excited to talk about this episode because there's just been so much that's gone on and we need to catch up. And then I'm just going to obviously talk about, the topic for today and just break it down. So first and foremost, Christmas. Christmas was a great time with my family. The craziest situation happened. Like if you listened to any of my podcasts a year ago, essentially I met a guy at the airport, and it was like that TV show Manifest, whatever, and our gate was stuck for hours. We ended up chatting, and then we ended up going on a date here in Springfield. He was a cool guy. We just had different belief systems, and he just wasn't the one. Like, can we just, we're 24 now. Can we just say hey, this person wasn't the one and move on? Like, let's just not make it that deep, I feel like. Anyways, so I'm going home for Christmas, and you know me, like when it's a late night flight, I pull an all-nighter, playing Kesha, vibing out. This time I really just had no motivation to pack. I didn't even pack. I packed, but I really stayed up all night. So it was a really early morning flight, and I had to get to the airport. Gosh, who even knows? It was probably 4 or 5 a.m. for me, and I still have to glam because I had a layover in Chicago, and it's And so I glammed. So I get to the airport, and I'm just I'm looking cute, but I'm so tired. I love, love, love the airport. I always joke around that the airport is my favorite dating app. But when I tell you, this time I was so tired, I was just not feeling it. Which is so not like me, but I was I'm not feeling it. Nobody talks to me. So I get to the airport, I'm looking cute, I get my smoothie, I'm having a bagel, and then literally out of the hallway, this guy comes out. I was like, oh my gosh, no way. And it was the exact guy I met and went on a date with. And he's so sweet. I mean, he was like, oh my gosh, where are you sitting? This is crazy. This is fate. He was cool. But I feel so bad because one, I just knew he wasn't the one for me. But two, I pulled an all-nighter, and I can be so mean in the morning. I am not a nice person till 11 a.m. And I just felt so bad. I was I cannot deal with this right now. I cannot. So I went to the coffee shop, and actually one of my friends I went to college with, shout out my girl Janelle, what's up queen, she was working at the coffee shop, and we kind of was chopping it up, and I was kind of hiding over there, and then out of the horizon, my wonderful friend, Obelisk owner, Nathan Taylor walked in, my saving grace, and we chopped it up. And it was just crazy. What are the odds that you're flying? I mean, I guess I don't know if it's that crazy, but I was going to Chicago, what was it, 2 days before Christmas, and I happened to be in the flight with two people I know on the same exact flight. So it was crazy. So Nathan and he ended up taking me under his wing all day long. We went to the United Lounge in Chicago, which was so bougie, so fun. I'm I belong in the lounge. That's one of my vision board goals, is make enough money to go in the lounge at all the lounges. So that was just so crazy. Did this happen to anybody else? No, seriously. This, I don't know. I saw this quote, and I'm not saying I'm interesting, but I saw this quote that was interesting people do interesting things. And, I always love putting myself in situations where madness can happen. And so I guess that's just the price I have to pay for being like, yeah, full send, like who cares, whatever. So that story was wild, but Christmas was so good with the fam. Thanksgiving I went home, I had the opportunity to go home and I vibed out with a lot of my friends and did a lot of fun stuff. But like Christmas time was really chill vibes. I mean, I didn't have a car and I had to like share the car with my kid brother, but now he's not a kid. I guess he's like 19 now, but he doesn't love sharing the car. And so, I mean, I really just like spent time with the fam and my dog and hung out, and it was just good. It was good to just be home. And I think for me, I've mentioned that there's been like moments of uncertainty and not really knowing what the future has to hold. And that can be really frustrating. And like one thing I do mention, which we'll get into later on in my solo in the podcast party, is I don't ever want to live in fear. And especially when you're really uncertain of like, okay, God, like, what do you call me to do? Where do you want me to go? What do you want, who do you want me to date? Like all these things. There's a lot of anxiety that can be inside that because you have to trust God. And even when you like trust a guy or a girl that you're dating, right? Like when you're really starting to like them and you trust them, it's scary. Trust falls. Like when you're falling down into someone's arms, you trust them, but it's also scary because you're letting go of complete control. And that's where I am with God. And so it's like, bro, I trust you. I love you, but I do get freaked out. And so I think right now I'm in a season where I'm not as freaked out anymore. I totally was a couple months ago, but like now I'm big chillin', right? Because I know he has the best plan for me. It's just frustrating because I'm really impatient as a person. And so it's like, for me, the hardest part of trusting God is just waiting. I'm like, okay, bro, like I know you have the best plan for me. And you like time after time, you've always done the right thing in the right moments. And I know it's all going to make sense. Like whenever God does something huge, I'm going to be like, oh, that's why you did that. Oh my gosh. But like right now, and I get it. Like I love my life in Springfield. I love all my people, but there's just things where I'm like, and so that's where I'm really just like waiting on God and just trusting him there. But it's hard, like Christian or not Christian, like it's hard just like being in that limbo wait moment. But that's where I am. So I just want to, if you're feeling that way, slay, I'm here too. Woo, in this together. So that's why Christmas was like very sweet with my family, because I think there's a lot of question marks for me. And so I'm trying to like soak up all those moments and like make the most of all of them. So you would think that, I'm currently in a sales position for a digital marketing agency. So you would think that December is really crazy, right? Which it was. I mean, we're talking breakdowns in the bathroom, breakdowns in my car. I was at the moment like the only salesperson. Like when I tell you I was unwell, I was unwell. Like, like it was, no one prepares you. Like I thought my first heartbreak was bad, but like no one tells you what that first year of sales, that December, that was really, really awful. I did not enjoy that, but we did get a couple of closings. So I was excited about that. Especially being like newer and younger, I guess, in the sales industry with these big CEOs. Came back home from Christmas to Missouri, and you would think that like, okay, it's January, things are going to slow down sales-wise, everything's going to slow down now. No, not the case. Like work was still insane. And then my childhood best friend, Brie Lamb, what's up, my queen? She was getting married in Dallas. So it was like, get back home from Wisconsin, on the grind at work, doing podcast stuff. Like I wasn't even home for a full week, and then it was like, boom, go to Dallas. So I go to Dallas, and we're getting ready for the wedding. And I remember there was like a lot going on, and I just remember I was like feeling a little bit sick. And so I was just very like emotional, but it was really, really cool getting to be there in Dallas and just have so many people that we love and like grew up with, and just celebrate Brie and Brad. So I'm so happy for you guys. I love you both. I can't wait to see all the beautiful kids you guys have. But that was really good. And I know in that moment, I just was like so glad that I was surrounded by my parents and my accountability partner and people that love me. And God's good. Like he knows the whole plan, and he knew everything in my life, and was like, Morgan, I'm going to pluck you out of Springfield. I'm going to put you right here with people that love you and got your back. And so that was good. And I needed to be there that weekend for sure. So that was really awesome to be a part of. But straight away, then right after Dallas, we get back to Springfield, and we had the Bass Pro Tournament of Champions. Like to paint a picture, I was in Dallas and there was a storm and my flight was delayed a day. So we're delayed a day, which was actually perfect. And then I get back into Springfield. I'm home for a day. And the next day, boom, Bass Pro Tournament of Champions. So let's break down how I got this amazing opportunity, because people keep asking me all the time. They're like, how did you get this? Like, you don't work at Bass Pro. How did you get this connect? Great question. So I want to give a big old shout out to CJ, Big Toe. He is my dog. If you're seeing this, you are the best. I'm so thankful for you. So I had been trying to edit and I kind of suck. And I remember CJ, we reached out to me. He had watched one of the YouTube videos I had put together, and then he was like, hey, get on the Mismatch Pod with me and Trey. If you've not listened to that podcast, please go check it out. I definitely overshare and pour my heart. But we did the podcast together and it was so fun. And then he had reached out to me and was like, hey, Morgan, I have this crazy idea. Would you get on the Bass, would you be a part of the social media team for Bass Pro Tournament of Champions? So we did an episode about that, which if you listened, amazing. I'm not going to go too crazy deep into it, but I do want to high level it. So basically in Springfield, Missouri, they have a huge tournament that's sponsored by Bass Pro, and they bring in the number one high school basketball teams in the nation, and then they play. So a lot of these kids, sometimes their parents are in the NBA, or, these kids right away already have, they're committed to big schools, all the things. So we didn't really know what to expect. Even I thought we were just doing crowd interviews. And then day 2, they're like, oh, can you do fun dances, trends? And we're like, whoa, we had no idea. We didn't prepare anything. I wasn't doing any research. I mean, Eva was up all night researching trending sounds and trends and this, but I was really focused on well, what can I ask these players that is one about sports, but also my own, swing on it. I want to ask things that these other people are not going to ask. And so I had the opportunity to, interview Ace Bailey, one of the St. Louis Cardinals, a bunch of the Paula Six guys, guys that are committed to huge places. So that was an amazing God opportunity, because I really am passionate about sports and sports marketing. And that's something I really wanted to do when I was in college. And so I'm always open to any and all opportunities. And that was just a really fun moment to be a part of, and just get to meet all these different guys, and then be in that world and have the VIP. It was just very, very fun, but it was long hours. I think I'm used to doing long hours, getting crap done in the airport, eating granola bars, whatever. And at Eva, we were struggle bussing, but we had a great time, and she was a great friend and helped me out. So I love you too, Eva. My queen. So Bass Pro TLC was a great time. I think we had that was going on for 3 days in a row. So we were really, really out here. And then I remember during the tournament, I get this DM from the host of Ozarks Live, Blake Haynes. Yes, sir. So Blake and I are besties now. I like when people kind of roast me, to be honest, but in a way where it's not mean, it's such a fine line when it comes to that, when a guy doesn't really know you, but it was cracking me up because people don't always come for me like my brother always does. So when someone else does, it just makes me laugh. But he had reached out to me, and the origin story of that is around a year and a half ago, I had messaged him being like, hey, I think you'd be a great podcast episode, to do an episode with, are you interested? And we had chatted about it, but it was around the time of my podcast party. And if you've been listening since last year, essentially we did the party, and 3 weeks later, I was offered a different job. So and then the different job had so much learning and training that I really had no brain capacity, and a lot of things fell through the cracks for me. And so I felt bad because I'm always out here do not ghost. And I ghosted him. Oh, that was tough. But he ended up DMing me, a year and a half later being like, hey, this is so crazy, but what are your thoughts on getting on Ozarks Live and talking about your podcast? I'm like, that would be amazing. We're about to hit the 2-year mark. I just got merch in. I'm so down. Also wearing Love Brand tonight. The vibes. And so he was like, okay, also secondary crazy. What are your thoughts on guest hosting the show? I was like, are you kidding me? What are my thoughts on eating steak every day? I'm gonna be down. I'm into it. And so I was like, yeah, I'm totally down. So we show up, and it was so funny because, we'll talk about this in the, next episode as well. But Eva and I are very directionally challenged. Me, actually, Eva is very good with directions. But we showed up to the location. I was like, hey, can you just pull up and take some like behind the scenes content for me? And we show up and I'm lost and it was this whole thing. But we went there and it was awesome. It was a great time. I guess when he said guest host, I didn't really think about like what he meant. I didn't think about reading a teleprompter. I guess I don't honestly think I thought about it. I just was like, yo, I'm excited to like pull up and like have fun. And so I did my segment on the show. And then like all the other segments, like the first two after that, I totally forgot how to read a teleprompter. I was nervous. I was like choking up because I didn't write the script. And I'm used to like writing my own stories and then going through it and reading it. And so it was a little bit different for me. But at the end of the show, I was really vibing out and we were smooth sailing and it was all good. It was vibes. So I'm glad I did it. And now Blake and I are good friends and we're definitely going to continue collabing in terms of, podcast stuff, Ozarks Live, all the things. So that was a good time. Yes, the merch, lots of updates there. I know I feel like I'm just this like radio ad that's going on and on and on. I obviously work in marketing. So for me, it's really big on like when things drop and like the hype behind it and all of that. Essentially, I got 10 merch pieces in and they're only size XL and it was going to be like for friends and family. And so right now they're already spoken for, but I wanted to do a photo shoot just to kind of emphasize like what they look like, vibes, and then do a big pre-order. So that's what's been going on. I am kind of going to release the pre-order soon. I don't really know, but definitely you should expect everything coming very soon because now that the podcast party is done, I'm ready to full on focus on that and my video stuff. I will say, so the podcast party, let's calm down and get into that. If you guys follow me on social media, you probably noticed that last year's party was wild. It was black tie. It was at a Discovery Center. It was on a Saturday. We had an amazing charcuterie board photo shoot. I mean, it was a dream. And I think the biggest thing, people are like, why did you have a podcast party? For me, I mentioned kind of how like senior year was a very hard year for me and the podcast essentially was a big healing thing for me. And if you listen to the first episode to now, you can tell in those first few episodes, like she was going through it. Like she was in the midst of therapy, like she was not okay. Now I feel like, I'm still crazy, but like I'm I'm very emotionally strong, I would say. And at this moment in my life, also these are my nails, slating. But, the reason I had the first party was I felt like I overcame so much depression, so much sadness, so much heartbreak, so much stuff that like always was trying to drag me down. And I was like, no, like this is what I'm called to do. This is what I like to do. This is what we've created. This is what God has. Like, no, we overcame this. Like that is my past. And so I wanted to celebrate that with all the new friends I've had and people that were there for me and all the things. So we had this big party, right? It was a good time. And I didn't know what to expect. I was like, okay, well, we should talk about metrics and like what my goals are and what we want for this year. I'm a big person of like, say your dream out loud. Like, obviously you have to be careful, like certain things. You don't want people to like steal your idea and stuff like that. But I'm really big on like speaking it into existence. Like if I say it and I believe it, I'm achieve it. Like that's what I really, not that I believe that. I mean, things obviously cannot go your way, but I'm really big on like, why not? I mean, like, if you want to climb Everest, why not? Like train, believe it, put the money towards it. I mean, why not? Why not you? And so that's my big thing. And so the party, I didn't really know what to expect. I put so much money into the last party. Like you guys do not understand. I mean, I got an amazing deal in the venue. I paid for a very professional video. We did a compilation video and we kind of had like a dance party moment. Like it was fun. And so this year came around and I've obviously had a way higher stress job. I felt behind on the podcast. I've had a lot of amazing trips this year. It's been a different year. Like I was harping on myself because I was so mad that I'm like, man, I can't give the time, the dedication. I was not in a position where I even like wanted to plan a podcast party. I mean, in full transparency, I literally started planning it, like November. I mean, that's the truth. And it's because there's so much stuff going on behind the scenes for me that it just like wasn't even a focus. Like, oh, am I going to do this? Am I going to have the money? Am I going to be blah? Like so many things. And so Obviously I'm really good friends with Relaxxx, and we talked about it and we worked something out, and they're just like so amazing. Like, I'm so indebted and like so grateful that God put them in my life. They are just the kindest people ever, and they created an amazing environment with the Riff and Relaxxx Yard. And so please go check it out and visit there if you haven't yet. It's just so fun, and there's nothing else like that in Springfield. And so we had the event there, and I want to thank, CJ and Eva, Jen, my parents, Julia. There's so many people, Christina, the crew at Relaxxx, like everyone, for being there. Hannah, just so many amazing people. And I felt, I'm going to be so honest with you guys, like literally the week of, I felt insecure, not about like my skin or anything like that, my body, but it was like last year I had so much control. Perfectionist. Like, I knew the minute down to the second of when I was going to talk and this and blah and blah. And when I tell you it was day of pod party this year, and to give you reference, my necklace, I had ordered a dress from Trilly.com, and I ordered a beautiful necklace from Etsy. I had no shipping confirmation for the dress for like a month. And then the necklace shipped. I had no idea, and it came into my friend's mailbox because all my stuff gets to her house because I live in a loft, and it's just crazy. And we couldn't find it. She contacted her office. We looked everywhere, nowhere. So I'm still having to like message USPS or whatever and get that figured out. So I had to order another necklace, and this bad boy was not cheap. It's not Claire's. Like, it was a decent necklace with a decent price, and so I'm like One thing about me is that I don't play games unless it's ping pong at Relaxxx Yard. Relaxxx Yard is Springfield's #1 social sport and game center. It is located in the back of Classic Rock Coffee Company headquarters and next door to the Riff. Coffee, sports, music, what more could you want? Located at 1900 West Sunset Street in Springfield, Missouri. Be sure to check them out, play some games, and reserve your event today. Visit www.relaxxxyard.com. Hey, my event is literally like in a week and a half. Is there any way I can get here? Like expedite shipping, all this stuff. I reached out to the dress customer support, and they said, okay, well, we're going to ship it. We're going to try. And so in reference, my dress came in 2 days before my event, and the necklace came in 3 days for the event. So it was just mayhem from the get-go. And then, in reference, again, I'm not a morning person, so my amazing mother came to the party, which has been a huge help. I love you so much, Mom. Thank you so much for everything. And I felt like I was so spicy because I just, I was hormonal, and then I was tired. And then, literally we decorated the event. I came back to the crib, and I'm finishing up the video, finishing up the presentation. To the last minute was everything got done. But the vibes of the parties were so different. Last year was very, it was business with more adults, and it was very investor type of moment, pitching myself, here's why you should care about my podcast. Here's what it is. Here's the mission. Here's why. And this year was more so the vibe of younger, 20s. It was 90s glam. We did a live show, and last year was why, and this year was more so, I don't want to be why not? But I don't even know, this year's vibe, if I had to give it a word, I don't know. I guess it was just kind of, fun. It was just, we did a merch giveaway. It was just very chill vibes. But I think you can ask me and Eva, and I don't know anyone else from the party who've gone to both. They were both fun vibes, but everyone just felt very relaxed and casual and chill because I think they knew what to expect while going into the party. Last year, I had no idea what I was doing, and no one else had ever been to a podcast party in Springfield Mall. So they're we don't really know, is there going to be a podcast, or are we going to watch a movie? What's the vibe? And this year, I think people had seen the photos and they knew what to expect of okay, this is going to be glam. This is going to be, a good fun time. And my biggest, one of my loves is networking. And so I love when, we do a game at every party where it's talk to 5 people, ask them these many questions, and to see my old coworkers from David's Bridal 5 years ago talking to Love Brand, or my church friends talking to the other podcasts in town, all the things, just seeing people connect, vibe, help each other in business is just one of my love languages. And so it's just so fun, and everyone really, really killed it. I cannot wait to see the photos from our photographer, Leah Queen, and Hannah. I want to thank Hannah so much for really being my co-host during the live show. She is so funny because I sent her some question ideas the night before, but I guess she never got that email. So we are 30 minutes before the event starts. And I was like, oh, any questions on everything? She's like, well, actually, I never received anything. I'm like, what? And she's so cute. She's like, oh, I just thought you were busy. I'm like, oh my gosh. But she is, that's why it's so important to also have podcast hosts in your life. Whatever you're passionate about, make sure you got friends in that same industry because they're going to help you and they're going to get you. We are T-minus 30 minutes. And then she, but she's amazing, right? She's just a queen. And so we just bounce off each other. And it's so funny because we did this live show, right? And in my mind, who knows, it's probably the devil trying to attack me. But in my mind, we're in the middle of the live show and I'm like, oh my gosh, is this narcissistic? I invited everyone to this party to sit and watch me talk about myself. There's just something about it in my mind that I was like, this is probably so cringe. And I remember I couldn't see anyone really in the crowd besides JT. And I would say all these jokes and I was trying hard. I was just trying to go joke after joke or whatever and laugh. And I could only hear his laugh. And I'm like, okay, well, if JT laughed, that's good enough for me. But apparently people actually thought it was funny. So that's amazing. Who knows? My girl Keegan was like, hey, can you bring this to Green Bay? And honestly, I would not mind doing a pod party live show in Green Bay. Hannah, come check out the fam. that would be so fun. So who knows? Pray about it, you guys. Message me. Let me know what you think. If you guys really want that, we'll pull up. Why not, right? I think that's the vibe of the party is a hashtag why not. So it was a really, really good time. And we played ping pong afterward and pickleball. And I think that's why I also loved it, is because obviously I love ping pong. So it was also crazy because Hannah, we were on the live show in which, when I tell you the stories that I tried to hide in my closet came out. I have not been the best driver in my life, and some stories of animals I've accidentally hit came out. And then my most embarrassing story. And all these people know so many deep things about me. I'm just please don't think of me differently. And also, please don't share it on the internet. This is between us and the pod party. Okay, you guys? But she asked me, she was talking about relationships and dating. And I got so awkward. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is karma for every time I asked one of my podcasts, mid episode, are you single? It was karma because I just was sitting up there and I was like, But again, shout out Nathan. He's like, she is single according to her Facebook, blah. Yeah, so I would say I had the best time. It was a lot of work. And I'm honestly really happy it's done, just because it's a residual thought in the back of my mind at all times. Oh, you should be prepping for the pod party. You should be doing this. But I really we really did have a blast the whole time, and so many new faces came, and that was just so fun. So thank you again to everyone that came. I love you all so much. And the merch, we are launching, and obviously people that did fill out pre-orders at the party, we are on the way. So it's very, very exciting there. But I'm so grateful. Won't God do it? So many moments, it's been so huge. We had the podcast party, and then that weekend, my mom and I were just blessed with, we went to my favorite spot and, caught up with old friends, and we were just, given so many free things, and it was just, so nice. Just covered in favor, covered in blessing. And then one of our girls, Ariana, my queen, who was a part of our small group, that, it's been cool to see God, with the dominoes. It's okay, she came to church, she met one of my best friends, who invited her to our small group. We never knew her. She opened up with her story. She got saved, praise God, and her past does not define her. And, I've been mentoring her, and I care about her so much. And then she decided to get baptized. And when I tell you, it was a party, we're turning up on our Devo night because, she's set free. And what a weekend, the podcast party, mom's in town, catching up with old friends, baptism. It was such a weekend where I felt the heavens were roaring. It was yes, this is good. And that was one thing that with my podcast party, I had videos and I was sharing things of my heart and talking about how grateful I am for all the times God, responded to my prayers with the answer no. And I think that's one thing that we don't really talk a lot about in our Christian faith. It's everyone's like, yes, no, maybe you're waiting, you're frustrated. I'm like, there were times 2020 where I was on my knees crying out to God being like, I want this. And he's like, no. I'd be like, I want to go here. And he's like, no, I want this job. No. But so many things I thought I wanted. Now I'm 24 and I'm like, thank you, God, you didn't give it to me. Like, I cannot even fathom being in that, like, a whole different life. Like, you saved me from so many things. And so I think that's one thing that I'm so happy about is when God had said no to me to things. And when he did say yes to other things that I didn't even know or couldn't even fathom. So that's one thing that I shared, during my video with the podcast, and you can see it's on Instagram too. Just talking about like the things that God has done and how the way that I really had these moments with him this year that have changed my life. And I almost feel like I've kind of been like reborn in my faith, and just seeing the way that it's just impacted my life, and the way that, in the Bible, when it says, okay, I'm not trying to be like super preachy with it, but like, I'm trying to be real. So like in the Bible, it's like when we sin, it breaks God's heart. Like that's where like it says, when we weep, he weeps, and that kind of thing. So, and you can feel, I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but I remember being in moments that are like burned into my memory of, hanging out with the wrong guy and I mean, not even guys that like, you're in a delusional state of mind, you're trying to cope, right? And this guy was like looking cute, and you're just like gonna make out with him, whatever. And I remember like putting myself in like dangerous situations with these guys that didn't respect me. And I felt it. And I remember like just wanting a morsel of something. And I remember the way that this one guy treated me was so awful. Just emotionally, just the things he like spoke to me. And of course, he didn't even remember it the next day. And I remember, walking home, like walking back to my car and whatever, and like going home. Okay, this is like definitely not what I had on my, there's no way I have this story on my outline. That's for sure. Sorry. But I remember walking back from that situation feeling so gutted. Like I remember, and I'm not even like going into details of like things that happened or things that were said, but I remember vividly I said something because I just like wanted this moment so bad. And I remember I felt a punch in my gut, and I knew it was like the Holy Spirit being like, no. And I knew like, I can't speak for anyone else. I can only speak for myself, but I know like things I've done that I was like, oh, this is good. Like this is fun, whatever. Like I could feel, not that like I could feel God weep, but I could feel just like, not disgust, but I'm like disappointment in myself because I knew that I wasn't living up to my best potential of what I knew God had called me to be. And I'm not trying to come at anybody. I'm not trying to speak about I'm talking about my life. Like I got to a point in my life when I was like, hey, this gray line's okay because it's gray. Like saying is things that were blurry, things where I'm like, the Bible says this, the Bible says that. I was like, well, I'm going to take some of this, but I'm going to choose something else for that because I feel like that doesn't work for me. And that's where I was all wrong. And so just the way that I've felt like I've stood on the truth this year, and I've chosen to have the faith where it's like, okay, God, I'm taking you for you, and I'm going to try to live the way that the Bible says. And it's hard. I don't know where you think that it's like so easy. Like, I don't know what Candyland you live on where it's like, oh, everyone does this and we're all blah. No, like I am often one of the people that is living completely different than the world. And I'm not putting myself on a pedestal. I want to be real for a second. Like I'm trying to stand on truth. And like, I love people. I love God and I love others. And you're never going to see me like try to come at or do anything like that. But I think for me, I never really talk about the moments of how isolating it can be to really stand on what God says. And that's why it's important to like surround yourself with like-minded people. I mean, I have all kinds of friends that I love so much, and I hang out with them and I talk to them. But I think for me, this year, I've chosen to be like, no, I'm going to be a Christian that actually tries to live Christ-like. Like, because so many times people are like, well, the Bible's good, but half of it doesn't work for me. So I'm going to choose my own religion and like my own Bible. And that is their choice to make. But that is not what the Bible says. I mean, take up your cross and follow me. That's what God has. And so, gosh, what was I even talking about? I think for me, this has been a year of growth, and there's a lot of things that I excuse because I thought it was not like, it was like too abnormal to not do in the world, right? It's like, oh, well, I can do this, but I can't do that because no guy's going to like me if I don't do that. Or I can do this, but I'm going to do that because this is so boring and like whatever it may be. And so, no, I've chosen to be like, you know what, God, I'd rather please just you. Like, I'm okay if nobody else likes me. Like, at this point, if I literally died single, dear God, please no, though. Like, please hear my cries. But I'm okay because I'm at the point in my life with my relationship with God where I'm like, look, this is the most important thing. Everything else is secondary. Like, people, we are human. We are flawed. We will fail each other. We will disappoint you. I will accidentally ghost you on accident. And so I think that's where my faith has really ripened, where I'm like, I'm done living for excuses. I'm going to live for what God says and what the Bible says and what he has called me to. And what's crazy is how that is often abnormal in the Christian community. So we don't want to talk about that, but that's what I'm going to say. And then we can move on to a different topic. But I want to say is like this past year, that has changed for me. And it can be isolating, but I have been able to grow. And when I see, people that are struggling with, their choices and like that gray line and like everything that I used to struggle with, it breaks my heart. And I just want to like pray for them and love them. I mean, that's because I was there and I'm still human. Like I'm still going through hard things and I'm still trying to navigate my own stuff in life. Like I'm by no means together. Please just ask Eva or my parents. Like very much not together. But I will say that has changed and that is me. And regardless of whoever you are and what you believe in, whatever, like I'm praying for you and I care about you and I love you the way that Christ does. So even if we don't know each other very well and you're like, hey, Morgan, I'd love to, can you just pray for me? Like this is something that you don't even have to believe in God. And if you're just like, hey, Morgan, I don't believe in what you believe in, but if you believe in prayer, will you pray for me? Because it's going to make a difference in your life. And I totally will. So I just wanted to say that I'm here for you. And that's, what was I even talking about? But that's definitely, the way that God has moved in my life this year has been huge for me. And I'm very, very thankful for that. So it's crazy. But let's shift gears a little bit and just get a bit more into like the girly pop vibe. So, in terms of dating, I'm just going to give some updates on like a few things. Nothing has changed. LOL. Today. But there's like some things I can't really talk about on the podcast. Trust me, like I will at some point. My type is definitely like Australian surfers, right? I mean, I can like guys that aren't that, but I really do like guys that are that. And so it's hard here in Springfield. I don't know what's been going on in the water. But I'm not even like tooting my own horn. Like I mean, like nothing has changed in me, I feel like, but since Christmas, I've had like a lot of dudes slide in, which thank you so much. I'm always going to support a guy, shoot a shot. I mean, please continue. Just because I'm not the one that's responding really good does not mean you should stop shooting your shot. I think it was like the Bass Pro Tournament of Champions thing. I don't know if that really instigated, but I've had a few awesome DMs and I kind of want to talk about it. So one guy DM'd me and like, to preface, you cannot get your feelings hurt. Like if you're going to shoot your shot with a podcast host, you have to expect that obviously she's going to talk about it. Like I would never say names, but you got to understand like this is going to happen. Like this is the risk you have to take if you want to shoot your shot with me. So vibes. But this one guy DM'd me and was like, you're the biggest slay in Springfield. It's like, oh my gosh, like that is an amazing line. Like keep that templated, bro, and like use that on every other girl. Like that is so good. I just wasn't super interested, and so but he's a really cool guy. So like keep shooting, bro. I mean, not with me, but like keep shooting your shot because I mean you're amazing, you're gifted. It's a great line. Like just keep going. And then just a bunch of other random stuff. Guys will be like, what up, whatever, blah blah. Okay, so one dude DM me, and I follow him because I thought he could be a great podcast guest in the future. And out of the blue, he DMs me. He says, you watch my stories a lot. I'm like, what? And it's crazy because I was telling my friends about it and they were like, ew, oh my gosh. I don't know if I'm like crazy, but I thought it was hilarious because I was like, oh my gosh, like who does this guy think he is? And so I was like, no, I feel like I watched some irregular amount, and we had a good chat. It was funny. But ultimately, like, I feel bad because everyone in here is like, Morgan, you're so picky. You're so annoying. Well, yes, I'm picky. And like, yes, I'm annoying because I have one life. And I don't want to settle. And unfortunately, I've never had like a really great, healthy love, but I do know, what connection and the flutters feel like. I'm watching Love Island Australia right now and it's so good. And like the butterflies in your stomach, the tummy flutters. So it's like, and I've traveled. I'm a well-traveled girl. And I know to some guys that's like a red flag, but guess what? I don't care. And so it's like, I know what exists in other states and other countries. And for me, it's like, I appreciate you shooting your shot, but if I don't feel it there, that's that. Like I'd rather be alone, like, and have everything in my life. Like I'm mega passionate about it than settle for an amazing guy that I just like don't feel connection with. And I know that's on me. I know it's on me. So like, do not feel bad. But like, this is me. This is real. I'm exactly in Springfield trying to live my life. And so, I'm just going to keep it honest, like whatever. I will say that this is super random. Like this is crazy, but, actually there were 2 really attractive guys I saw today, which is wild. Everyone in Springfield that I don't know, I feel like is married. And then everyone I feel like I do know, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, but I feel like at this point, I just know a lot of people with connections and everything. Like, obviously, I can't even go to the airport without being on the same flight with people I know. So today I was at a coffee shop, like working, and I turned my head, and this guy was walking out, and I was like, no way. Me and my coworker were both working, and we were like, oh my gosh, you see that guy? Like, oh my gosh. And all I know is that he was driving like a black Mustang. I don't even know if that's the right car, but I feel like I can tell. And I don't know, like maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that's a single person car. But also I'm like, you are that attractive. I just feel like there's no way you're in your 20s and you're single. Like I feel like it gives recently married, but I don't know. And then I went to my gym today and I work out a place with a lot of old people because the vibes are so good, like the amenities. And I just have not had a gym crush, and it's been annoying because like, I don't know, when you're single, it doesn't have to even like be serious or deep, but it's like so fun to have a gym crush, It's like church camp, but like for adults. And so anyways, this one guy was there and I just had really never seen him. And I'm like, oh, he's kind of cute. I mean, granted, I didn't even get like a close up of his face. And obviously you're like in a workout place, it's definitely like church camp, like that tension when you're young, And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, he was cute. I don't really know. But Valentine's Day is this week, and I'm always been a big Valentine's girl. Like, I always love looking cute, eating sushi, having cake, vibing out. But this year, I'm actually really not doing anything because it's just been so much with the podcast and everything, and I'm trying to rest and chill and vibe. But one of my favorite spots downtown is having a little, like, I don't know if it's called like a Lonely Hearts party. I don't know, because I'm not lonely. And I don't have a heart. No, I'm just kidding. I definitely have a heart. But they're so fun. Like they're having a DJ. It's going to be a fun time. And they were like, are you going to come? It's like, yeah, I'll pop by. But here's the thing that I'm so crazy about is I'm so delusional. I'm like, how fun would it be like to pretend like this night isn't real? Like how fun would it be just to have like a list of questions and then like go up to anyone I think is cute. But that's the thing is like, I don't know if I'll even think anybody's cute, but I feel like it would be just fun to kind of like have fun, like have a list of questions and then just be really like bold and annoying just for content. Like, I don't know. I just think it would be fun, but that's the hard part is like we're in Springfield and I feel like people take it so serious that I could say something funny and goofy and then someone's gonna like stalk me on Instagram or like message. I don't know. I probably sound like an awful human right now, but this is what it's like when you're in your 20s. And I think the hard part too is like all my friends for the most part are in relationships. I mean, I have a few that are single, but ultimately this is just not the place I feel like to go if you're trying to be single. I feel like I go to a bigger city and that's okay. But one thing I do want to talk about here on the podcast before, we're getting later. Oh my gosh. quick pause, the Super Bowl. So we're not going to get too crazy into it because I kind of talk about it in the next episode. But I have so many thoughts, and I don't think anyone really cares to hear any of them. I don't hate the Chiefs. I don't love the Chiefs. Obviously, I respect the crap out of both the teams. Like, I think the 49ers are very bougie, and I think that they're just a really good, well-respected team. I think the Chiefs are too, but also I think Travis going to Taylor Swift concert was a PR thing. I think they could be real, but also, I mean, in the beginning I was like, yes, this is so crazy, it's so fun. But now I think it's like a little bit annoying to me. But I'm happy for them. I mean, I think like if they're happy, I'm happy for them. It's just, I think for me, I'm so excited for the Packers. I actually have like money on them right now that they'll get a Super Bowl win within the next 3 years. And I mean, you can have your own opinion. I just know Jordan Love would never act the way that, T. Kelsey did during the game. And so Super Bowl, I don't know. I feel like we all knew the Chiefs were going to win just because, I don't know. Like, I'm a conspiracy theorist. So I honestly, it's like, oh, everything's real. But then I also am like, is it? I don't know. I'm so bad. But I can't even I can't talk about it because you're all going to think I'm crazy. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I could see things not, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that's crazy. But yeah, I do want to say some random stories, like little random facts before I get into a few more things. My mobile mechanic guy is doing amazing. He fixed my car again recently. Pop off, King. You're the best. He's so reliable. So it's funny because I'm actually reading a book that's like a study on healthy relationships. It's like highly happy marriages because they don't really teach that in schools. I'm like, why would you not? Why would you not teach and it's very because people have their own worldview. So like the book I'm reading has that Christian worldview. So obviously public schools don't want to pick a worldview and it's a whole thing. But still, I'm like, people don't know what healthy marriages look like. So I've been reading this book, but I've kind of sucked at reading it recently, but I was like really on a good grind. So it's in my car, right? And so, my mobile mechanic was like fixing her up, Slay King. It definitely cost a bit of money, but he saved me, gosh, like $1,000. So it's so funny because I always joke around that he is so rough and tough that like he's really great at fixing my car. But also if I was like, hey man, I'm in a fight, I need you to pull up, he would slay. Like he's strong man, like he's great. And so it was so funny because he was like, hey, can you come out here? I'm like, hey, what's up? Like, how's it going? And he's like, yeah, so your car is this and blah, 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 and blah, blah. He's like, I noticed you have this marriage book in your car. Like, are you getting married here soon? And I'm just like, what? But he's opened up to me about some stuff in his life. And I know he's had like some trauma and stuff. And he's like, well, if you're getting married, like, don't. And I'm like, dude. I'm like, do you need the book, bro? Do you need to keep it? We can have like a library card system. He's really funny. And, I told him, I was like, look, I am going to get married someday and I'm going to do it. I'm working really hard to I want it to be like successful. I'm sorry about what, your situation and like whatever happened there. But, there's always hope for the future. There's always opportunity for new growth and like all those things. So definitely fun there. That was so wild to me. I was like, I've never had my mobile mechanic like tell me not to get married. I don't know. That was a new one. Yeah. So, I don't know. A lot of life has just happened. I'm in a good headspace. And one thing that we're actually going to talk about on my Devo, this small group this week is, we're talking about the waiting season and it's so hard. It's very difficult. But one thing that I feel like God and church has been pouring into me is really like having hope, trusting God in that waiting season. Is like, I don't know what the future holds. Like, I have no idea, but here's what I do know. I do know that God's never failed me, and I know that he has the best plan for me. And so when you take those two things together, really you're unstoppable in anything, and we don't have to fear anything. And so that's really what the season has looked like for me. It's hard too, because in my mind, I'm like, bro, I would like love to go to Australia, right? So I'm kind of just like even closed-minded when it comes to dating. So I get up on here and I'm like, but really, I mean, like, that's part of the reason why I'm like, I'm probably not someone that is super available, to men in Springfield, because I just feel like I know what I want, but also I am open, whatever. I'm trying to think of anything else that's crazy. So the merch designs, I guess like a background story on some of them is I'm trying to get everything finalized trademark wise. So if you do want to donate to anything there, please let me know. But the designs are really like pieces of me. It's things that, phrases that I've collected that I've actually came up with. There's like ping pong incorporated, college vibes. So they're very like my heartbeat. And that's one thing that my goal is really, my merch. I want it to be very like unisex, like men love wearing it, women love wearing it. It's fun. I want to have jerseys. Like it's a good time, and all the things. But I will say there have been moments in the past year or two that have been really, really hard. But I do think right now, my life is really good. Like there are obviously some areas that it's like, oh, this is hard. I don't get it. It sucks. But I would say like a year or two ago, I was really going through it. And there were some things that I've had great accountability partners that have been like, you have to heal this. You can't hold this offense or you can't do that. And I think, 100% like forgiveness is, we have to forgive, it's huge. But you can still have boundaries, especially if people, they just don't have the same vision or they don't have the same, mindset as you. You can't change how someone necessarily thinks, but we can have power in like our boundaries or, how we feel on certain situations. And so I think for me, a lot of forgiveness has happened over the past year and two. And I know like right now, I think things are going awesome with my family, with my friends, with our small group, with my church and the podcast. And so I don't know what God has in store. And when I'm talking about like seasons and stuff like that, I'm talking straight out of my heart. I think some people look at me and they're like, wow, like Morgan's doing a lot, which it is facts. Like, I feel like I'm always working, always, all the time. Not even like on my job necessarily. Like I'm working at work, podcasting, the anti-sex trafficking coalition group. Like there's always something to be done, I feel like. And that's where I am really trying to prioritize rest and being in the moment and having fun and also just like being open and trusting God and like having hope in the unknown. And I think especially for me, what's really crazy is when I feel like my relationship with God wasn't as close, I was so worried about what everyone else thought. Like I was so worried, like, would this guy like me? Like, would he respect me? Will my friends think I'm weird? And now that I'm closer with God and like probably have like more boundaries, I think you would think that I would feel weirder or like more of an outcast, but I actually feel more sure of myself. And I feel more sure of, in my mind, if someone's like, oh, that's weird, Morgan's whatever. In my mind, I'm like, okay, like you made it very clear that I don't need to be very tight with someone that thinks that I'm super weird. Like I respect the crap out of people that like we have completely different beliefs, ways of living, everything. But like if we like, I love you, you love me as a friend, like perfect. It's the people that like can't respect me and speak badly on me that I'm like, I just can't get behind it. Like, I love you from afar, And so I think for me, I just feel more sure of myself. And I will say like, having boundaries, like being strong, being sure of yourself, it's awesome because it's preventing me from heartbreak. But also it's like the pool of people gets slimmer and slimmer. But like I always say, I'm not looking for a million leads. I'm looking for the one sales qualified lead. I'm looking for, I want someone to come into my life and like make it significantly better. And I hope that I can be that for them. And the thing about it is like, I would say I'm very content with my life. It's obviously that area you're like, I want it to be filled someday. But yeah, it's okay. It's like, today's not the day. Not to switch gears, but I have played ping pong at the podcast party. I'm going to say names on this. I definitely beat JT, my king. And I beat Lucas and Nick. So sorry, Leprin. But Raul came out of the woodwork, and I don't know if he's been like going to practices and not saying it, but he did beat me. And I'm, eating humble pie right now because that's hard for me to say. And I'm very proud of him, and good work, Raul. I appreciate you guys listening to the podcast. It's so cool that it's been 2 years, and I think it is hard, I always say, because we always want to compare ourselves to ourselves or our goals. I think that's one thing I'm always like, but growth takes time. It really does. And I think it's really important to, read articles, read books of other CEOs, of other leaders, of how do they handle adversity, like how do they handle revenue, growth, all the things. I just think it's important to listen to other people and like really be in the moment. And I think it's really important that we don't understand how a moment can literally change someone's life. Like speaking life, one prayer. I mean, even with our Queen Ariana, Eva met her and then she came to our small group and then this and this, like it was this culmination of a lot of moments, but ultimately, God was like, go to church or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so I get emotional, like seeing the way that God uses me or like he uses other people. And when I see so many amazing things happen, like it just makes me really, really emotional. And, I'm so grateful for this podcast platform, and I don't ever try to be preachy with it. Like literally sometimes I feel weird just like sitting in front of a camera and a mic and just getting deep with it. Like in my mind, I'll be like, oh, people are going to think this is annoying and weird and blah, blah, blah. But I get some texts and they're like, hey, thanks for talking about that issue. Hey, thanks for doing blah, blah, blah. At some point here, I really do want to talk about, my testimony. And that's something that I think is important to share. And one thing that came up at the podcast party was someone asked me like, what's a good mini series? Like, what would you want to do? Great question. Madison, great question. But I think I really want to do one that is how the mental health really coincides with your physical health. And that's something that I've heavily gone through. I know a lot of people in my life have as well. And just talking about the power of our mind and how it controls our body and like how God needs to be in control of all of that and blah, 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 and like diving into all of the things. And I love all you guys. And I always want you to feel like you can contact me and have me pray for you, and it's a safe space. I didn't even do any like Q&As this podcast. Oops. But I guess, I don't know, if you had any kind of question, be like, Morgan, what do you see for your future? I see what God has, and I'm like, look, dude, I want what you want. And what I see is the growth in the podcast. And when I tell you, we're at that 1 year mark with the loft. And I don't know if you guys know, I've talked about it. I don't know if you listened to that episode. We had a lot of new people, but it's like a year ago, I was living in a crappy apartment. When I'm telling you, like, drug deals were happening when I walked in. There was like dog poop everywhere. There were like no health codes everything was being violated. It was never clean when I moved in, no communication. And the people, they're like, oh, we're like, blah, 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 we're very religious. And I'm like, look, like, you're not treating anyone with respect or kindness. And I remember I actually asked my lawyer friend to help me out, and he wrote a letter for me and he got me out of the lease. And it was amazing because my friend at the time, I was like, I want to live in a loft. And we saw the loft. I toured it. I paid the application fee. And then my girl Hannah was like, you have to sign this lease or I'm going to sign it. And so I had signed it while I was still in the other lease. So, last November, I have anxiety. I'm crying. I'm throwing up because I'm like, I have 2 leases and I'm going to have 2 payments. Like, well, what am I going to do? And the other place got me out of the lease. And my lawyer friend, praise God, never charged me anything. And so, and when I came into this loft, I prayed over the whole place and I was like, God, this is like the biggest miracle. Like, this is the biggest gift. Like, this is 3 times the size of my last apartment and like just a bit more money, like insane. And I said, I want this place to be yours. And when we have these small groups, like when girls come over, not even just girls, like when we have game nights, when we have just like this community and we're building, togetherness, we're having people's like past and shame just like go away through prayer, like on these floors, on this couch, the vibes. It's so powerful because I'm like, God, I give this, like you gave this to me, I give this back to you. And I've seen the way that he's used it, like the way that I have all these relationships with all like the workers and my neighbors. It's insane to me because I didn't know any of these people a year ago, and we didn't have anything like this a year ago. Like a year ago, I was like, man, I have Christian friends, but I'm struggling in my faith and there's just no accountability. And I feel like I just have no one that's challenging me. And I'm trying to be strong, but I'm also a human and I have, feelings and blah, blah, blah. And now we have this community of people that are like, what is God speaking in your life? what are you struggling with? How can I pray for you? This is something that like, you feel like you shouldn't be doing, like blah, 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 blah. And I'm just grateful that I'm in a position that God was like, I'm going to let you lead this. Like, we're going to do it in your loft. We're going to do this and blah, blah, blah. So I don't take any of that for granted. I'm very grateful for any and all leadership roles I have. And that's something that even though I can be in moments of like, well, I want to do this and I want to do that. Like, I am very thankful for the present. And I am very thankful for what God has done. And, I do want to emphasize again, what I had mentioned in terms of, putting your hope in God for the unknown, trusting Him whatever season you're in, no matter how difficult it may be. We don't know why bad things happen. Like, we live in a broken world. There may not be some deep meaning, some explanation, like things happen. But God can often use our pain for His glory. And that can be really hard to understand. And it's something that like we all have different pains, and I'm not taking away anyone else's pain or anything like that, because there's things that I will just never know what that feels like, and I'll never understand it. But I see you in it, and I love you, and I want to help support you in how I can. And so that's where, the world's going to fail us, but God is good. And so just, especially whatever season you're in, just trusting God in it and knowing that there is a purpose that He has for your life. I will say one thing, as I mentioned earlier with dating, is like, do not settle. And people, like, I'm huge with all my contacts and being like, what's your number one piece of advice? Like, the amount of interviews I've done on the podcast, the amount of networking events I've gone to, the amount of huge CEOs I have met where they are like, my biggest regret is not going for it. And that's why I'm like, I'm going to go for it. And everyone, like, things happen in life and whatever it may be, but you feel that urge inside of you. Like, that may be your calling. That may be, there was a conversation I had with someone the other day, and who knows? Like, I don't know what God's doing, right? Like, I could meet my future husband like tomorrow. I don't know. I don't really know. It doesn't really matter. Like, blah. But this was like a couple of weeks ago when I was convinced that my man is definitely in Australia. But I told her, I was like, there's just something in me that like could not fully, I don't know. Like, I just, with Springfield, like, I do care about it, but I feel like I do have to travel more. I can't just, there's something about it that's like unsatisfied. And I feel like sometimes I feel bad about that, but also I so don't. And, I thought about it and I was like, well, maybe that's God not wanting me to be satisfied here because I'm not supposed to be. Sometimes I think we hate the feeling, but instead being like, well, what does this mean? Like, is there a purpose in this? If I'm praying about it, is this you speaking to me? Like, what does that look like? And that's between your relationship with you and God. But I found it fascinating that we kind of flipped it, where it was like, okay, maybe, if you're having, like, you have anxiety about something, where like, maybe I shouldn't go to this, maybe I shouldn't go that, maybe you just shouldn't go, yeah, maybe it's just not right. And I've had things where I'm like, oh, thank God I trusted my gut, and my peace and like in God, and knowing like, oh, I shouldn't have done this. But just don't settle in life. You have one life. What do you want to do? What is God calling you to do? What are you afraid of? I think people are so scared of being alone. Why? It's actually awesome. You get to do what you want. Yes, there's less cuddles, but, at least you're not cuddling someone that doesn't like you all the time. I don't know. There are people that do like you. Their healthy relationships are definitely thing. I am very pro relationship, but I'm just saying that, I have, like, in terms of what's best for you and, your growth and like your plan and all the things that you want to do, like, are you on the path that is projected to that? Or do you have distractions and people and things in your life that are stopping you from that goal or what God may have for you? Do you have those roadblocks? Like, what does that look like? And these are questions that we probably ask in our Devo, but I'm saying here on the pod because I love you guys. And I think those are important things to ask. Like, we're in moments in life where it's like, hey, it's like when you're in a relationship for a long time and you're at the point where like, okay, we're either getting married or we have to break up. But because this whole like middle situation is like, we just can't do this anymore. Like, that's what I'm saying for you. Are you feeling like you're content and you're on the path that you're supposed to be? Or are you in a position where it's like, I am living comfortable and stagnant and there's no growth? Because I think no growth is scary. I think just staying the same is significantly more scary than decreasing, because I think with decreasing, at least you can see that a change is being made. In a closing thought, before I get into my, quote of the night, I'd like to say, what does your season look like? We talk a lot about seasons on here, and definitely uncertainty has been a big thing. But, in terms of your waiting season, what does that look like for you? Are you satisfied with how you have been handling it? Or maybe like your partner? Are you settling for something, but you're like convincing yourself that you're fine and you're good and this is good? Or is there a part of you that really, really feels like, I just don't know that there's something out there that I'm missing out on? I've had moments where I feel like that, and that's where I'm waiting because I want that moment. It excites me to know what's out there. And that's what's crazy is some people are so afraid of the unknown. I crave it. And I'm just like waiting until I can have it. So I don't know. But I would ask yourself really, because moments of like singleness, moments of, hard waiting periods, that's where we grow the most. That's where we really develop into who we are and like how we handle conflict and how we handle these hard times. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about really getting ready for marriage. And the one chick was like, you can't waste your season of singleness because like how you're acting now, the boundaries you develop, like who you are is what you take into marriage. And I think it's important. I think it's true. Like if you're disciplined, like you work out and like you have your side hustle and you make dinner, like whatever it is, are you going to do that when you're married? Or do you suddenly think you're all of a sudden going to be this like perfect little person that's going to do all these things when you're married, when you don't do squat when you're alone and single? Like, I don't know. I don't know you. But I just think that this is the time where you develop who you want to be and have your standard of who you want to date. Like you have some respect. Like you can, write down the list of what you want. Like don't settle because someone likes you. I mean, that's great, but you're great. Your worth. I mean, write down what you want, pray about it. I mean, I pray specific, with it. That's what I really want to say here is have hope and put your trust in God for the unknown. Do not settle in life, in relationships, in apartments. Come on, like, do not settle. It's hard. It can feel like it's lonely, but it is worth it. It is worth it. And then I would just say too, like, what is God calling me to in this season? And, maybe you don't believe in God. So let's, what's important for me in this season? Like, what do I want to learn out of it? What do I want to gain? That's between you and God or whatever. And I think asking that question, the part of me before I really had that huge moment with God this past summer was I somehow cared more about the question of like, what am I doing on Friday than I did, God, what are you speaking to me? And that's when I knew I had to make a change in my life. Was I was never asking the question because I didn't really care about the answer. And now I'm like, shoot, I only need this question because I have to have this answer. So honestly, you guys, I know this episode's been so up and down. I wasn't trying to be preachy with it, but it's been an interesting year for sure. Junior year of adulthood is weird. But it's cool. I'm going to keep it real with you guys always. And that's something where like, it's okay if you're like, oh, this chick is crazy. Like that is fine. That's okay. But I'm going to keep it real. Like this is me at 24. This is me out here. This is what it looks like. So, in terms of favorite song, favorite quote, and what about my legacy to be for this month, my favorite song right now, there's actually so many bangers out right now. I just have a lot of favorites. So let's just like honestly look at oh my gosh, I have to choose this one because I used it in one of my podcast videos. Home by Good Neighbors. It's so good. It feels like euphoric to me. Like, da, 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 da. Like I'm ready to just like, I'm like in the world, I'm in Paris. I'm like, life is so good. Love that song. Favorite quote. I probably can't find it right now, but gosh. Okay. Well, I'm going to murder this quote. I added it in my podcast presentation, but it was by this guy named George. And it was like, the only thing scarier than fear is like not going for it, but I just murdered it. So I feel like that's not a good one. I pull up my girl, Helen Keller, the only thing scarier than being blind is having sight and no vision. So I don't know. I think that's what I'm living in, is I'm someone that's going to go for my dreams regardless of what other people think. And, always trying to understand what God has for me and like learning that. But also asking myself, like what are things that I'd like to do? Like what's important? And a lot of those things are intertwined. And yeah, like I think it's important to kind of have, like an idea, a dream, a plan. I mean, things get ruined all the time, but, have some vision. Like, what's your dream life? What has God called you to? Like, how do those two work together? I don't know. I think that's really important. And then legacy, I mentioned, like, I want to be someone that, like, loves like Jesus. And I think some people feel a certain way when they find out I'm a Christian, and they can feel whatever they want. But I want to be a Christian where it's like, I showed you love. And we're friends and we have a relationship, and you can go to Morgan when you need a hug, when you need a prayer, when you talk to somebody, all the things. And I just want to, I want to resemble him as much as I can, in a way that, that people get saved and they fall in love with Jesus and they experience a love that they've never had before, that doesn't see their shame, but is very just like, welcome home. Like, we've been waiting for you. Like, we love you. And so that kind of thing. So love you guys so much. I know this episode is probably wild, probably not what you expected, but here's the thing is, we're going to do a lot of fun things in the future. I got up a lot of ideas. There's like a roster of people who are probably will get on the podcast. But I wanted to just chop it up because this really was like a FaceTime call. Like, we haven't chatted in a minute, and I wanted you to hear my heart and just to understand like where I'm coming from, what's been new. But I want to say, you guys, like, I'm doing mentally well. Obviously there's always going to be something in life that's going to be like, it kind of sucks, but doing mentally well. Excited for some new experiences. Of course, love talking about it on the podcast. But yeah, I'm so thankful for each and every one of you. I love you so much. Buy all the merch. And please leave as many reviews as possible. Again, I love funny stuff. Please make me laugh. Give me your best pickup line in the reviews. Vibes. Okay. Love you. Keep on keeping up with cash.